All right, hello everyone. Give me a second. I'm going to share my screen and put the link in the chat here. That's the community update link. Let me also share the preliminary 0920 release plan link. And now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, everybody I think should be able to see and read my screen. Should I increase the font size or is it legible? I guess I could increase it a little bit. Okay, so we're getting ready to release 0920. Right now, the current actual release that was done is 0919. But what we're doing is on the test net, we're running the pre-release 0920. And I will just briefly share with you, even though this document is not done, you'll see that the document status and the release status are blank right now, they're not done. But you will see here that it's basically a whole bunch of bugs reported over the course of last several months that we're checking out to see if we're able to reproduce any of those. So we have been resolving that. That's basically been a main focus of what we've been doing last several days. And let me switch to the update. The other thing we're doing now, in the past, we had run the test network with either 5 or 10 nodes. So we're testing with 20 nodes now to see if we notice anything new and different. In terms of what we're working on at the moment, there is basically a couple of errors that we're trying to resolve. Replay had different kinds of errors before, but there is more. Most of those have been resolved, but we are trying to resolve something that we noticed with that at this point in time. So that's one of the things. And we had recently introduced system deploys for closed block, and that seems to sometimes cause a problem, and that we're just trying to nail that down and try to resolve that. That's another one. And then the slashing for invalid blocks is an issue that's probably going to be a part policy issue and part code changes based on what we decide from a policy perspective. But I think these are things we think are quite, at least we know what we're dealing with, and we just need to go ahead and complete these pieces. That's where we are. And so that's what we're focused on right now. I talked about last week, I talked about the fact that we were working on this ticket to deposit slashed funds into co-op wallet. That has been merged, as have been most of the other items that we were working on. For example, there was this performance improvement ticket for making Casper replay on top of the least effort block. That's been merged. One piece of good news is that these exploratory deployments, which allow a user to essentially run things on a read-only node to examine how the contract is likely to behave on the system. So that, I said earlier that would probably be a post-mainnet launch, but Tomislav worked hard on this. The initial version of this is being reviewed right now, and we'll probably merge it and release it with the 0920. That's my expectation right now. So this allows you to get data from the blockchain, and it'll be executed on top of the last finalized block. You can read here, the future versions will support custom block hash and other features. But right now, at least, this gives you a nice way to quickly go through and get the data that you need from the blockchain. So that should be going in. The other effort is getting ready for external validators. We're working with a couple of them to nail down the processes and the mutual data exchange, as well as monitoring mechanisms and all that we need to put in place for somebody to be a validator. There is organizational checks, I guess the validator needs to go through, financial checks, and the ongoing monitoring coordination. For example, if their node goes down, what kind of response time would they have? Who does what? Those kinds of things. So that's the other piece of activity that's going on. By and large, that's the main portion of the tech update from my standpoint. But before I ask for questions, that people have been DMing, direct messaging with a couple of things, or have been asking questions in the channels. So I just want to highlight those two things, which probably Greg will speak to more. One thing people were asking was, what is the process for asking questions about rev balance that the co-op publishes? And if we have any issues with that, what is the resolving process for that? That's one of the questions. And the other one is some folks were asking, where is the information on how to become an external validator? Like I said earlier, we're working with a couple of them closely now. And once we work with them, we'll document that process, and we will be publishing that out for external validators. But Greg, you might have more to say on that. Are there any questions on the tech update?
Well, I just want to say I really appreciate all the hard work that everyone's putting in. It's really, it's very inspiring.
Thank you. And the team has been doing a tremendous, they've been really pulling all stops to get to mainnet. So I really appreciate everything that they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, if you will let go of the screen, I'll do a screen share.
Okay.
Okay, so I know a lot of people are very interested in what's going on with the balances adjustments. So I want to show people where we are. I still, because this is such an important issue, I want to go over this like with a really fine-tooth comb. Things seem to be checking out. They're certainly within expectation now, but I don't want anyone to get stiffed, so that's why I'm taking my time to make sure that this is all correct. I've posted in Discord where the code is, so everyone has the spec for how we compute the adjustments that was published a week ago, and people now see the code. And now I'll show you what the results are just running it on the Barcelona thing. So the important point is, let me show you here. All right, so to run the code, assuming that you have SBT installed on a machine, you do hold on. You just, at the command line, you just do SBT console. And then once it starts up, you have, sorry, it takes forever to, SBT's output is a lot of fun. Anyway, so once it starts up, you need to make sure that you have access to the functions. So you'll want to import co-op.rchain.rbalance.transactions._. And then there are two clicks that we're considering, right? There's the Barcelona click and the Pythia click. So you ask for the raw transaction graph closure.barcelona click.report adjustments. Now, there's a lot of reporting that's going on that I've been using as debugging information, but it's useful for people to see. the vast majority of addresses are not in the click associated with the Barcelona address. So what do I mean by click associated with the Barcelona address? What I mean is that click is all the addresses that were touched if you run a transitive closure starting from the Barcelona scammer address. So if you run this, you'll see that the vast majority by far. So in fact, I print out some statistics. So here are the statistics. The total number of adjustments from Barcelona affects 1,031 addresses out of 18,531 addresses. And the total adjustments that are not dust, I mean, in other words, they're greater than 1, is 56. So there are 56 addresses that are touched by more than one rock. So that's so most of this is, as I tried to say in the note that I put into Discord, most of the real adjustments are in addresses that are directly connected with the scammers. So the scammers did a lot of shenanigans where they moved things back and forth between addresses to try to hide stuff, which is why we see that, you know, there's this tiny number of addresses where the vast majority of tainted tokens are in 56 addresses, and then the rest are dust. And so you have a total number 1,031. And what I mean by dust is, you know, if you look here are the address adjustments, right? So at 0x6dB at the top and 8346 at the bottom, we get 10 to the minus 29 adjustment, which is below the precision that we have for the token. So that will be in the wash, right? So I'll clean this up by eliminating the amounts that are below the precision of the token, right? So they'll go to 0. So there's some, you know, the scammers did do a good job of you know, sort of hiding some amount of this stuff because they end up as dust in the transaction pool. But the vast majority of the total scam tokens sits in these 56 addresses. So not too much to worry about. We're still recovering most of them. Are there any questions about what I just said?
Hey, Greg, I think that's a great explanation. And yeah, I've been kind of asking that question all morning, you know, what the gross amount was and the dollar, you know, the value of, and finding out that the way super majority is dust is, I think will put a lot of people's mind to ease.
Yeah. I've been trying to say this for quite some time. I mean, you could have, anyone with a block explorer could have figured this out in about 10 minutes. So so there, if you add up both the Pythia and the scammer tokens, that's 71 million tokens. 83% of that sits in 4 addresses. So of the remaining 12 million tokens, that is scattered, and about 5 million of those sit in about 56 addresses. And I haven't done the calculations on the other 7 million. But it's about the same. In fact, yeah. So we'll see that it's a really tiny amount of addresses that are in any way materially impacted. So they're co-op. But now let's speak to another thing. So a lot of people have said, well, why don't we just take the co-op take the hit on this? and just forgive all of that. So let's think about what that means. So what that means is that all the people in the cooperative, who are the vast majority of token holders, they were scammed out of 71 million tokens. And then the rest of the people who are not in the cooperative, they colluded with the scammers to get the tokens while the scammers walked away with a bunch of money. If we recover the tokens, then those people who were on the side of who accidentally got tokens from scammers, as long as they're co-op members, they're getting those tokens back. Right? That's the important thing. Is all those people who are token holders who happen to have gotten tokens, they're getting those tokens back in the sense that they're a member of the co-op and they are a part of the community that controls what happens to the co-op's treasury. So by returning the stolen tokens to the treasury, those people are benefiting because now the co-op of which they are a member has a reasonable sized treasury. Hopefully that explanation was clear. Any questions about that?
Greg, I'm wondering, when we talk about dust and the number of, or the precision, so are we saying that if a wallet has, let's say somewhere in that 8 or 9 decimals type of an adjustment, are we going to adjust that, or are we going to adjust only if it's 1 rev and above?
We'll adjust it up to the precision of the token. The token has 8 decimal points. So if the adjustment is 9 decimal points, it's out. If it's -9, we can't account for it.
Okay, thank you.
So, Greg,
I guess some members are saying, well, they bought tokens long before the Barcelona deal on KuCoin.
Right, and so most of them live in the 18,531 minus 1,031. So most of them are sitting. So there's what is it, 17,500 token holders who are not affected at all.
right.
So the people who bought long before there was a scam are almost certainly not affected.
Yeah. Well, doing diligence, I'm computing what that would cost to make them whole.
I mean, they won't be dinged because they don't have any tokens that are being taken from them. Their wallets are not adjusted. If they bought before the scam happened.
Right. But what happened is they withdrew from KuCoin after the scam.
Again, their addresses weren't touched.
They received tokens from an address that's 7.5% scam tokens.
That seems, well, I'll have to check, but I'm not seeing that. The reason is because the vast majority of the scam tokens are locked in a single address.
Yeah. Let's compare notes offline.
Yeah, sounds good.
So, Greg, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay?
So anyway, I will. People are free. I would encourage people to review my code. Almost certainly there's going to be an error in there somewhere. So take a look. Make sure that you're comfortable with how I'm doing the calculation, either at the conceptual level, which is in the policy document, or in the implementation. As I said, I wrote down 3 different algorithms. The first 2 have a problem in them because they depend upon being able to get a balance at a point in time or at a block height, and that's not happening. So they will be off. The third one does not depend on that, and that is provable. but take a look at my reasoning, make sure I haven't screwed anything up. You'll get a chance to review this for a couple of days. I will keep tinkering with it to make sure that it's all good. And then by midnight Friday morning, it'll all be frozen. If you do have an issue with what's going on, just simply write in the Rock to Rev channel on Discord and tag me and Ian Bloom, and we'll make sure that someone takes a look at it.
Yeah, also one of the members was suggesting that whatever that process is, what you just said, should probably be announced in the redemption website, or something should be put to that effect in terms of if you have a question or you need to resolve a balance issue, this is what you need to do, type of thing.
Sounds good. That's reasonable.
The Rock to Rev channel is given in that redemption website.
Yeah.
Greg, can you hear me okay? Is my mic working? Okay. So will those 50, can you send me those 56 addresses? I just want to add up the balances using.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I need to just make sure that those 56 addresses plus the first address from the Barcelona scam equals roughly 11 million tokens, right?
Exactly. I'm doing exactly that kind of sanity check as well. So.
Okay. Yeah. So if you can just copy paste that in this text file, drop it in Discord, and then I can check as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
We also have the data in for SQL Server. If anybody wants to play with the data, that's in the Rock to Rev contract. I have a file, a Google Drive with all the files for analyzing this with Transact SQL.
Yeah, so I think that's a great thing. I've just put the data in flat text files. They're included in the resource directory. If you run this program, the data will output not only to the screen but also to adjustments and proofs.csv in the resource directory of this project. So it's important to note that I don't just output the numbers. I also output the cryptographic proof, which is the pathway from the pathway of transactions from the source scammer address to the address that's got hit. So that much I am certain is correct. So the calculation of the transitive closure is correct. I know that for a fact. The only thing that I'm worried about is whether in walking the transitive closure, I've done the arithmetic wrong, because I've gotten it wrong about 4 or 5 times. So anyone wanting to check it certainly should check it. I know for a fact that when I calculate the click is exactly right. So in order to walk the click correctly, what you have to do, or at least what I ended up doing, is I walk it forward once and just calculate the weights. So I just calculate the corresponding fractions for distributing it across that transaction, right? So I don't know if people visualize things in their mind when talking about these things, but what you can imagine is that there's a giant graph of all the transactions, and we're going to pick out just those transactions that start from the tainted address, the initial source of the scam, and then all of the, so they start from there, and then you just iterate. So the first generation, they end in some addresses, they're the sorry, I'm not speaking very clearly, but all of the first generation of transactions are going to have the source be the scammer address and the target some other address. And now you iterate. The next generation is going to start from that one of those target addresses and find all the transactions that go out of that address, and so on, until you hit the block height that we picked, which was 9371743. So that's how you know that it stops. So that click is easily calculated, and then what you do is you walk forward and you calculate for a given address, you look at all the transactions flowing out of it, and then you take the total amount of taint that ended up in that address and divide it by the total outflowing, right? So and that division is attached to the transaction flowing out, right? So that percentage is how much of the taint will flow out of it. And then so that's not quite done, right? Now what you have is you've labeled all the transactions with percentage of taint. And then what you do is for each address, you look at everything from the taint that was contributed, right? So you don't look at any other balances. You just look at what was contributed from the taint, and then you subtract what flowed out of it. And again, that was just the taint. And that gives you the total taint remaining in that address. So you have to walk the click twice, and that gives you, I believe, that gives you the correct number. So we'll, but please feel free to go and check my calculations. I've certainly made tons and tons of errors in writing this code. So. But the last one I've made as simple as possible. So it should be easy for anyone with a modicum of programming knowledge to follow the logic and check it out. All right, I think that's it. There are some other things for the closed door session, but the closed door session is where we plan to launch the mainnet. We'll do it live with the group in the session. It won't be closed door. It'll be open to whoever wants to come.
We're looking to use this channel, if that's okay, Christian.
Yep. Yeah, I saw the message yesterday. It works.
Okie doke. So, are there any other questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, I have just one quick question. It's actually two questions into one, but is this forensic analysis, if you even call it that, easier or faster done in on RChain? Like, so if you had the same situation happen on RChain, would this be just so much easier to do in Rolang?
I don't think it makes a difference what chain it's on.
Okay.
You still have this issue of having to crawl transactions,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to crawl a DAG of transactions. That's what you have to do, and there's no getting around that. And because there's at least on Ethereum, I could not find any published API for getting a balance of an ERC20 token at a specific block height. Now maybe it's out there, and my Google foo is not very powerful, but certainly I did a bunch of searches trying to find such an API, and I didn't see one published. So to the best of my knowledge, either you go and do that calculation yourself, which is very time consuming pretty tricky, or you take the method that I described here.
Right. Looks like there's some money in it for the people that want to write this code, write these APIs. People will certainly pay to use them, right?
Yeah, I suppose. I suppose. You know, I mean, it took me longer than I had hoped to write this thing because I have day-to-day operations that are pretty merciless.
Right.
And I don't know about other people, but I really need to concentrate when I'm writing code. I have to sort of not have a lot of interruptions. But with day-to-day responsibilities, I'm interrupted about every 15 minutes nonstop in a period of 24 hours.
Copy that.
So anyway, so I think we're all good here. I'm really looking forward to the launch, and yeah, I really am so humbled by all the work that everyone's put in. It's really quite amazing, and I think this is going to be a really good year for RChain. I'm seeing lots and lots of interest in RChain. I want to shout out to Theo. Sorry that we didn't launch yesterday evening, but I think it's better that we give the community a chance to review all the balance adjustments. But it's really good. Theo is going to be an external validator, our first external validator.
Hooray!
Yeah. Okie dokie, folks. Unless there's anything else, we can yield the time back to the community.
Let's do that.